All right, everybody, one more video for the day. The other thing that was asked, was written on the board was perseveration and hyper-fixation. I assume the question here is, what should we do with this? And here's going to be my answer to this. Every single one of us gets hyper-focused on something throughout our lives, right? We all have a time where we super focus on something and it brings us a lot of anxiety if we can't fix a problem or we need to do something or we're trying to hold on to something. And I want you to think about the cognitive overload that we have when that happens to us. And we have neurotypical brains. We don't have a neurodiverse brain, right? So our brains are processing that information differently. So while we sometimes might be able to regulate ourselves to write a note or say, okay, no problem, I can do this later. Now, side note, keep in mind, not all the time. Sometimes we do it immediately to fix our problem, right? So keep that in mind of how that impacts us. Now I want you to think about that from a neurodiverse brain. So if you think about us struggling with that, imagine how much more escalated that would be if your brain was neurodiverse, right? So you have different ways of coping with that. You have different ways with handling that and self-regulating yourself, or you don't self-regulate and you go fix the problem. So what do we do with our autistic clients when they're hyper-fixated or perseverating on something? As long as the perseveration to me is not injuring themselves or anyone else, what I will do is I will see how I can incorporate that into my therapy session. So for example, about a month ago, I had a client that I was working with who really wanted to watch Zootopia. But we were working on some reading skills, some phonological awareness skills. So I thought, okay, he really wants to watch Zootopia. He asked multiple times to watch Zootopia. So how do I transition this into my therapy session? So what I did was I logged out of my Disney Plus account and I had the child log into my Disney Plus account on their own, had them type in my password on their own, and then I had them find Zootopia on their own using the search engine. So I have just taught this child multiple skills revolving around phonological awareness, even functional things like logging in and being logged out, 2 words that he didn't know. He didn't understand the concept prior to this session, what being logged out versus being logged in meant. So we added those words to his vocabulary. Very functional. We use these terms all the time. He practiced his typing skills. Instead of just giving him the letters, sometimes I would say, oh, the next one you need makes a L sound. What letter makes a L sound, right? And then he had to find that on the keyboard. We practice following directions, we practice typing, we practice independence, we practice self-advocacy, and making lots of choices. So while I could have just let the whole session go and say, oh my gosh, he wants to watch Zootopia and that's the only thing he's going to talk about, instead, I changed my perspective and I said, how do I help my child to be able to self-regulate, to be able to get these wants and needs met, and simultaneously still getting a lot of therapy done. So ended up being this super great therapy session. So I would challenge you as the clinician to find out, 1, what is the purpose of that perseveration or the hyperfixation? And how do you, 2, incorporate that into therapy while helping your child to stay regulated and engaged? Hopefully that answers the question. If it doesn't, shoot me a little message below and I will try to do my best to answer it more effectively. Bye, guys.